Today's February 15th, 2025. Current Bitcoin price is $97,530.
Welcome to the BitBite podcast, your source for news and information about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice.
So Bitcoin did not give us a Valentine's Day present yet.
No.
Or did it?
No, but I'm still in love, so it's all good. It's all
good. Yeah. You know, it can be one-sided. Relationships can totally be one-sided. You know, eventually the other person will give back.
Eventually.
I
don't know. Bitcoin feels like that. And then it turns into like I don't know, what do you call it? During the winter, it just basically ignores you. Or you ignore it because it just crushes your soul as you watch it, fall further and further.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. And it's kind of funny because are we almost exactly where we were last episode? Almost. Not quite.
Pretty close. Yeah, I mean, just a hair higher, right? It was 96,623, so it's 97,530. A little bit better.
Little bit better. Not by much. So how are our theoreticals doing?
Okay, theoretical purchase, October 2023. If you would have put down $3,000, got 0.0885 Bitcoin. That $3,000 purchase is now worth 8,631. So it's seen better days, but that's still pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Buy number two, buying right at the halving. This last year on basically April 19th, $1,000 would have bought you 0.01564 Bitcoin. And that now is worth 1525. So, I mean, a 50% gain still.
Yeah. They're still not bad numbers all the way around.
No, I mean, in that purchase is now pretty close to 10 months old. So it's getting almost to that year, but...
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I remember, well, in that purchase too, like it's been below water for a while there.
Oh, yeah, it was treading water, if not below it, for all the way until the election.
Yeah, and then it shut off. And right now it's such a wild month because February, there was so much hype going into February. Everybody's like, oh man, February is going to be an explosive month. We're going to have all kinds of gains. And so far, it just has not materialized.
No, not really. Which is fine because you can't push it too early. And if it gets a little too heated, too accelerated, then the sky starts falling on the price. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's still just kind of crazy to think about that, right around the $100,000 range. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we'll call it right around there. That's where we've been stuck. And people are still like, it's boring. I want out of it. I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, all right, man. You mentioned something because we were looking at the ETF flows for a second there. And at first I was like, it doesn't look too bad. And then you're like, no, February is a down month. And when I just look at specifically at February, you are absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, we had one good inflow day on the 4th, but on the 3rd, it was negative. And then the 6th is negative. The 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th was negative. The 14th was positive. So that's, more days than not being outflows. So,
yeah. And the inflow days aren't enough to recoup those outflow days.
No, not at all. I mean, we haven't done the math, but just looking at the numbers, it's not good.
Yeah.
Granted, I mean, I'm not surprised. And that's why the price is still as low as it is. And, there's a lot of things people are expecting magic to just happen in Bitcoin and it just launch off. I mean, I think it is going to happen. We just don't know the time frame.
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And that's where it goes back to a lot of times Bitcoin will be boring. Like a lot won't happen with it because a lot of people hate this sideways action that we have going on right now. But if you sit on the sidelines, you're like, well, I'm going to wait for it to go lower. That's not usually the good idea. Usually the best strategy is just to buy and hold.
Right. Buy and hold for at least one full cycle. Then you're going to look pretty good. Granted, you could look pretty bad in a couple of years depending on how the cycle goes and how low it goes at the tail end. But that 4-year mark, that's what we preach.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to hold at least for a cycle. And one of the things that I think was interesting too is that we didn't see a complete dump on the CPI news that came out.
Right.
Because we did get CPI. CPI came in hot, right? Came in at 3%.
Yeah. What was it previously?
2.5. Yeah. So from month to month, yeah, because we were at 2.5 and they were talking about it at that time because it had already gone up again from the previous month. I want to say we were at 2.2 and then it went up to 2.5 and now we're at 3. So it went up another half a percent basically, which it's higher than the economists were expecting by 0.3. So they were expecting only a 0.2% increase again. So that would have been 2.7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Core CPI, which excludes food and energy prices, increased by 0.4% for the month and 3.3% over the past year. So, I mean, when we look at some of that, we've seen a lot of different things, like eggs have gone through the roof price-wise.
Yes.
I think at one of the local markets here just in town, like if you get is it a 60 count that they were advertising? I don't know if you saw that. It was like almost $60.
I saw that a couple of weeks ago when it was $45 and I was like, dang.
Yeah.
It's already to 60.
Well, but part of that is price gouging though too, because if you go to Walmart, I think that same amount was like $28.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bacon is up 6%. Beans, peas, and lentils are up 5.6%. Beef and veals up 5.5%. Lettuce is up 3.3%.
Wow.
So I don't know. It's crazy. I know a lot of people are pissed off at Trump right now because they haven't seen the reduction in prices at the grocery store. But I don't know. I kind of expect that inflation, it's not gone as much as the Fed wanted to march around like it was finished.
Yeah. Well, and we've been saying from for a long time, I just keep repeating myself, all of our economic data in the previous administration, especially jobs numbers, they were gaslighting. There was nothing even remotely reflecting reality. And then they'd come back and revise them multiple months later. They'd revise them down, then they'd revise them down again. So they showed that, the economy grew by this much. And after the revisions, there was basically no growth or negative growth.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, like, I wonder if they've already revised the basket of goods or not yet.
It wouldn't surprise me, but it's just kind of interesting. Granted, Trump's been in office for less than a month.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this plays out.
He's approaching that 1 month mark though. That'll be on the 20th.
Yeah.
And I mean, given he's been going hot and heavy on everything, but it's
hard to keep track of where he's at.
It's nuts, man. What was it? That one gal talked about, and I don't want to go too far off into the weeds on this, but at least it's worth bringing up, I think, that there was a second gunman in JFK's assassination.
Yes.
But they haven't released the whole thing yet, right?
No, they're just looking through it and they're gathering the information and allegedly going to release it.
It's kind of interesting.
And from what I understand, like the intelligence agencies and the government seized a lot of people. I mean, there was more than just the Zapruder film. There was other films of the incident, but they were seized. So it's going to be interesting to see what the other films show.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. One of the other things too that we talked about last time we recorded was 22 states, I think at the time, were looking to pass strategic Bitcoin reserves for each one of the states in the United States here. And now that number has increased to 27. Because I know at the last time we talked, we were talking about how it wasn't even half the states in the United States were talking about doing it. And now we've seen that increase to 27. So VanEck went on ahead and put together a list of what the potential investment potential would be. And that list was, or the investment potential from those states is $23,538,440,545 that would have flown into Bitcoin if they all passed.
That would be, that'd be big news. That would start the rocket ship all over again.
And like I said, I think what would happen is you would see it happen one state at a time, and that's where I think it would be kind of interesting. Now, two of the bills died already, and that was Wyoming and North Dakota. So in Wyoming, it was House Bill 201, and in North Dakota, it was House Bill 1184. Those both died. Now, North Dakota still has another one. They've got a concurrent resolution running, and that's 3001. Wyoming doesn't have anything else on the docket. So that's where we're at right now. I think Utah may be the first one to go through, but we'll have to see.
Yep. Well, that'll be interesting because there's rumors. I mean, there's no confirmation, but we've heard rumors about different Middle Eastern states, already buying Bitcoin for their sovereign wealth funds. And, Trump's talked about doing it. I mean, there's the House bill that Cynthia Lummis is putting forward, or actually she's in the Senate. But, yeah, I mean, things could get really crazy if the United States jumps on board in a big way. I think it would force a lot of other countries to jump on board.
Yeah, and I think we were kind of talking about that before we started recording, was that, as I think we're going to continue to trade sideways for a while until we start to get positive or negative news, one way or the other, from some of these findings with either the federal decision on Bitcoin, or as these states start to either approve or deny some of this stuff with Bitcoin. I mean, and you could see it could be like just little micro boosters that continue to pop off. Like as these things get either approved or denied, it'll go up, go down, go up, go down, until like all of a sudden then you hear the big enchilada from the Federal Reserve, or not Federal Reserve, but from the Fed. And when I say the Fed, I shouldn't say that, from the U.S. government, federal government. And then you'll see a big rocket ship, I'm guessing, at that time.
Yep. Well, and that's kind of the interesting thing, is it's game theory playing out. I mean, people were predicting this years and years ago, and I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think everything points to some stuff's going to happen this cycle. I still think we're going to go through a regular cycle. The only thing that gives me any type of hope that this may be a little bit more extended with this bull market is the amount of time that we've traded sideways. But, who knows? It could, if this stuff pops off sooner rather than later, it could still cut the cycle short. Because I think you were saying, like, if we get one more really big leg up, which would make sense, that'd be the end of this cycle, right?
I think so. I mean, in that leg up could last, weeks or months.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wouldn't be like you're not talking about, $180,000 gain. You're talking like some big moves that would take place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bitcoin could about double whatever the floor, if it kind of goes down, for the next week or so, because it's kind of in that cycle low right now. If it can hold us at a certain level, I mean, it's not uncommon for Bitcoin to double in price after some action like this. So
yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's really is, I think you were kind of talking about this, like, this could be the new floor too. It could go, and maybe it could get up to like 200,000, and then, all of a sudden it goes from 100,000 or 200,000 to 100,000. Everybody's like, oh my God, Bitcoin lost half of its, gains.
Yep.
It's a possibility. It could still even go down to 60,000 because that's usually the previous floor. The last cycle high is usually the floor for the previous cycle. That makes sense? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So
If the last cycle's high, it becomes your floor on the latest cycle. I mean, that's generally true. So,
yep. So yeah, I mean, we did break it slightly. This last cycle, what have we got down to 15,000?
oh man, yeah. Oof.
And then, but the previous high was like right at the 19, 20 range. So we did dip below that, but that was pretty crazy. It didn't stay there very long.
No. But I still think it's going to be a huge flex. If you bought Bitcoin today at $97,000, you're going to be able to say, hey, I was able to buy Bitcoin under 100 grand. And I think that's going to be a huge flex several years from now. People are going to talk about that. I mean, it's like us talking about buying it for under 1,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it's funny too, because so much of the story, the narrative behind Bitcoin and how much you should try to accumulate has started to change, and like you're starting to see it more and more often. Now everybody's talking about you got to get to 0.1 of a Bitcoin, whereas in the previous cycles it's always been like, well, you got to at least have a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, and now it's like, well, get to 1/10 of a Bitcoin. You know?
Yeah.
Because they're still like, that's going to be life-changing money. It's going to get harder and harder to hit some of those metrics.
Well, I just wonder at what point are they going to be saying, well, get to 0.01,
Yeah. Oh, I would guess by next cycle.
Yeah, next cycle, that's what they're talking about, trying to get to the 0.01. And that was, you would have got 0.01564 back in April, right at the halving.
Yep.
For $1,000. So,
well, and I mean, just considering the one that purchased it was done back in October of 23, that didn't even get you to a full 1/10 of a Bitcoin, 0.0885.
Yep.
And that was $3,000.
$3,000 at that time. So, yeah,
like it's getting pretty. It's getting tough to stack sats for sure, or at least it's not tough to stack sats, but it's tough to get those accumulations like we used to be able to get, no problem.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up today?
I just want to say, what's your prediction for the next week or so?
I think.
How about the rest of the month?
The rest of the month?
Yeah.
God, I hate to say this.
We're halfway through it.
I think we're either going to be. I wish I knew what the announcement dates on some of these were. I think we're going to be. I'll say 100,000. I don't think we're going to move up or down. I think we'll be in range bound still.
Yep. I think we're going to be range bound for the next couple of weeks,
mm-hmm.
to be honest. And maybe after that, one thing will break up or down. So
yeah, and it's always weird too, because we're going to get into tax season, and people will sell their Bitcoin to pay off tax bills. So,
yep,
yeah, it's
true.
Yeah, and then I think it'll be after April is when we'll get some clearance again as to which direction we're going. Possibly, I could be completely wrong on this, but that's what it's feeling like.
Yep. I mean, we're patient. We've been in this game for a while, so
yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
Continue to hold. You just got to stack your sats.
You hold them, and hold them on your own wallet.
Yep. Yeah. Self-custody. I still need to get those updated with those other links, but you can currently get the Ledger and the LPAL on our website. Doesn't get you any discounts, unfortunately, but it does help our podcast. So if you do feel like doing that, you can go to www.thebitbytepodcast.com and go into the deals tab, and there you can get your links for your LPAL or your Ledger and help support our podcast. So
absolutely.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.